Hold on. Hey, everybody. Welcome on in to NorCal Sports Network. I forgot the music. I was hitting the band and forgot everything. I hit it right on, but we're going to get right into this thing as we promised earlier today. As we were on the Kruger show earlier, we're going to continue this. But first of all, I want to give a shout out to the sponsor of this show, Chapman Law Group. Chapman Law Group in Marin. If you have any legal needs, make sure you give Chapman Law Group a call. Let them know NorCal Sports sent you. Thank you to Chapman Law Group. All right, here we go. Larry, we were on your show today. We talked about the Niners being a tough loss to the Packers and basically getting their asses handed to them. But I brought up some points about the idea of Los and I did a show probably, what do you say, about 6 weeks ago, Los?
Mm-hmm.
That we thought it would be a creative idea for the Niners to maybe, we don't want to fire Shanahan because he's not a guy you would fire. He's too valuable, but he is a guy that teams would want. We thought, why not trade Shanahan and get some real assets, get some number one picks as the Tampa Bay Bucks did when Gruden came to them, and then later when Sean Payton had left the Saints and then he wanted to get back into coaching, the Saints owned the rights to Sean Payton, and so the Broncos gave up a couple of picks to get him. So we wanted to get into this, and kind of my take and Los's take that we don't think the Niners are going anywhere anytime soon because of the age factor. These guys are starting to get old. They're going to need to rebuild it. And why not do it with some fresh draft picks to rebuild some important areas that they don't seem to get, which is the offensive line. What do you think?
Who, me?
Yeah, what do you think?
Well, first of all, you're talking about a scenario that's only happened like twice ever. Okay, so it's not like, oh, this is common. Right. It's not common. Second of all, you come across like the most ungrateful people of all time. Look what you had when Kyle Shanahan took over your team. Your team was shit. Your roster was horrible. In 2 years, he turned around and got you in the Super Bowl. You've now been in the NFC Championship game or better in 4 of the last 5 seasons. It'd be one thing if he was like Marty Schottenheimer and it was like, hey, man, this guy can't win big games, but he can win big games. He's won NFC Championship games. He's 8-4 in the playoffs. He's gone to 2 different Super Bowls with quarterbacks that nobody thinks are any good. So, I like Brock Purdy. I think he's pretty good. But a lot of people think, I see all this, the tweets left and right. He's not him and this and that. And all these people who claim to love him, but then tweet 75 negative things about him. So as far as people's discontent today, it's like, okay, so a bunch of people are like, start Josh Dobbs. Why? What the fuck has Josh Dobbs ever done? Josh Dobbs sucks. Josh Dobbs is 3-11. So you're arguing to start a guy who's 3-11. So I mean, at the end of the day, it's like, I don't care that he started Brandon Allen over Josh Dobbs. that doesn't move me at all. I don't think that that's a bad move. I think that I agree with Shanahan, but I was at all the practices. And Brandon Allen outplayed Josh Dobbs, and Shanahan wanted to go with Allen, and he did. Do you really think that Dobbs was going to beat the Packers today? Because I don't. Do you really? I don't even think Purdy necessarily was going to beat the Packers today. So I don't know. The whole fire Shanahan. I mean, you're basically saying fire him because you're saying banish him. You're saying you're just smart enough to know that you sound like a fucking idiot if you come out and say fire him. So you're going to say trade him. But the whole thing is the same toxic bullshit that it's always been. He built the 49ers in a very short amount of time into one of the best teams in the league. We can recognize that his offense works, because even without Christian McCaffrey this year, they were top 5 passing offense, top 5 rushing offense. So he did it without McCaffrey. He got to a Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo, who's not even good enough to start now. He got to a Super Bowl with Brock Purdy, the same quarterback that a lot of you people listening said is shit and can't play. So if Brock can't play and Jimmy can't play, then Kyle must be a hell of a coach because he went to a Super Bowl with both of them. So I recognize that the 49ers need to rebuild. They're not the first team that ever needed to rebuild, and they won't be the last. But I don't know, man. I mean, it's so easy to say fire the coach when things don't go right. And it resonates with all these morons who don't know shit because they're not watching the All-22. If you're not watching the All-22, you're not really even seeing all the players. So I can't even get mad at you when you fascinate on the 2 guys that you get close-ups of. And let's not pretend that this isn't cause and effect. There's a real reason that people in the NFL, fans, many of them are casual, even though they might call themselves hardcore, but they've never watched the All-22. They don't even know what they're watching when they do watch it. They don't know what they're watching if they don't hear an announcer. I'm not saying everybody. There are people out there that know what they're talking about. But my point is just that the vast majority of the people screaming, fire Shanahan and Purdy isn't any good, are just reacting to the way the sport is broadcast, where you see a play, you see Purdy. You see a play, you see Shanahan. You see another play, you see Purdy. Maybe you get Purdy and Shanahan. And it's just a series of plays being run and close-up facial shots of the head coach and the quarterback. And then, shocker, lots of people's conclusion is, I don't know, you better get rid of the quarterback. You better get rid of the head coach. And then, we're now in an era, too, where I don't even think a lot of these fucking morons even believe what they're spewing, but there's financial incentive. If you talk about the 49ers offensive line, you could have the greatest points of all time, the greatest stats of all time, the greatest observations of all time, and it's going to get X number of views. You do that same video or even a lesser video on the head coach or the quarterback, and it's going to get X views times 10. So that's the real reason that people filibuster on Purdy and filibuster on Shanahan. Is Shanahan the world's greatest coach? No. Is he Bill Walsh? No. Okay.
No.
Is he the best coach in football? No. But you know what? The best coach in football, would he be the best coach in football if he didn't have the best defensive coordinator in football? If he didn't have the best special teams coach in football? If he didn't if somebody that wasn't named him picked the best quarterback in football? So you know what? There's a little luck involved in these situations, and it's a team situation. It's a team effort. So you can park your car on the corner of fire fucking Shanahan. You can park your car on the corner of trade him for draft picks, but you only really can name one guy that you would rather have than him, and you don't have an answer if that guy says no. And last year, the one guy you guys all wanted was Ken Dorsey, and then he got fucking fired.
I never mentioned Ken Dorsey. I never was on.
People mentioned Ken Dorsey.
Not on NorCal.
Ken Dorsey was Ben Johnson last year.
He got fired by Buffalo. Man. He got fired by Buffalo midseason.
Fired by Buffalo.
Yeah,
fired by Buffalo. So all I'm saying is, there's lots of people that, if I want to change out my kitchen, I can find anybody on a corner with a hammer that can sledgehammer out my cabinets and my countertops, and I can find somebody to destroy it easily. Anybody, any jerk off can destroy your kitchen. It takes a contractor with a plan and with some knowledge and some skill to build it into the kitchen that you want. So yeah, this first part, everybody's behind you, and anybody and their brother can be like, tear it down, rip it to the studs, fuck him, fuck Shanahan, fuck Purdy, start over, they're cooked, they're done, they're seasoned, they're blah, blah, blah. And it all resonates with morons. But guess what? Somebody's going to have to coach the team after you fire everybody. Somebody's going to have to actually win games once you run people out. And you know what? We saw them have a good head coach that didn't win a Super Bowl, and they ran him out. And how did that go? How did that go? How did it go for the Niners when they ran Jim Harbaugh out because he didn't win a Super Bowl? Okay, he didn't win a Super Bowl. But guess what? Tom Sula didn't get to one. Chip Kelly didn't get to one. Those guys didn't get to the playoffs. So
I think what you're saying though is
it's easy to fire Shanahan, but it is so much harder to find and attract the guy that you want. And even then, our play calls, what the problem is, are offensive play calls what ails the 49ers? I don't think so.
I think it's a top down.
Yes. Did the talent when Harbaugh left did the talent go downhill as well?
Yes.
And that has something to do with it, not just as the coaching. But
well,
I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you my
Los. He invested in guys who had character issues. Those guys went to jail. That's what happened.
The difference
Ray McDonald went away for a while. Bruce Miller went away. Alden Smith went away. I mean, he invested in guys that, we're not on anybody's team after a while.
The difference between how Harbaugh has lost his big games and Shanahan, Harbaugh lost his big games in all different ways, from 11, 12, and 13. Each game was different. All of Shanahan's big game losses have been lost in the same manner. Now, my personal discontent with Shanahan goes back 2 years. And it's not about X's and O's. I'm going to throw out some categories. I want to ask both of you, and I want to ask the chat. I want to ask, since Kyle Shanahan has been the head coach of this team in 2017, I'm going to name off 5 things, and you tell me what he's gotten better at. Let's start with number 1, clock management. Same, better, or worse in 8 years as being the coach? Clock management.
I don't know how to evaluate that.
It's always been shitty. It's always been a question mark about him. It doesn't go away. Okay, we don't want to answer that one. Number 2.
No, it's not don't want to. I don't know what would I point to? I mean, there's all kinds of, they've won all kinds of games. They're, take away the first 2 years, they're like 20 games over 500, aren't they? After the first 2 years under Shanahan, they've got a pretty good record because they weren't very good in those first 2 years as he was building the thing up, but they've won a lot of games.
No doubt.
So I'm sure somewhere in there they've managed the clock correctly, but go ahead.
No doubt. And I think one of the narratives, Larry, that I think my personal opinion gets kind of lost is Kyle gets all the credit for this team winning in the last 5 years. And to me, if we go back to high school and we do that little pie thing where it's like 40% is this, 30% is this, or 30% is that, I don't hear nothing about Lynch and Adam Peters drafting players, trading for Hall of Fame players like CMC, like Trent Williams. Those guys get no credit. The talent itself gets no credit. It's Kyle is the only one that gets credit for this team winning in the last 5 years. And I just don't believe that. I think he is a huge part of it. And I think he is a good coach. But like as Dan alluded to earlier today on your show, and I'm glad I rubbed off on you in 2 years in working with me, Dan, you finally see a little bit of the light, is that Kyle's problem is not that he's not smart. Kyle's problem is that he won't come off of things and he won't change things. So I'm going to go down my list, and instead of doing one by one, I'll just say all of them. These are things that I think he's not gotten better at. Clock management, roster politics. We're seeing it right now with Mason. He's conservative. His emphasis on special teams has sucked for 7 years. He has never emphasized that. And the biggest one of all is a hurry up offense. If I was a head coach trying to get a job with you, Larry, and you were the owner, and I told you, oh, by the way, I don't believe in a hurry up offense. He's not going to say that because he wants the job. But if I told you that in all the years the three of us have watched football, I've never seen or heard of a head coach that doesn't emphasize a hurry up offense. That is an egotistical arrogance that I have not seen in all the great coaches. You're going to get behind in some games. You're not going to be. Kyle's a front runner. He's a great coach when he's ahead. But when he gets behind, his record speaks for itself. And not having a hurry up offense, to me, that is a fireable offense. Why John Lynch and why Jed York are not going to them and saying, hey, man, we're behind. What is your philosophy about not running a hurry-up offense? Why are you taking time to do this? There's nothing, it's just swept under the rug. Everything that goes against Kyle is swept under the rug because he wins. His team wins. His talent wins. But the things that he does and doesn't fix, Larry, is what drives me and more people up the fucking wall.
Let me counter. Let me push back.
Yeah.
All this talk about their talent. What is their talent? I mean, what are we talking about?
The last
they have the last pick in the draft is their quarterback. That's who their quarterback is. The last pick in the draft. Their running back is the reigning offensive player of the year, but he's, to me this year doesn't look anything close to a star. Their running back when he went down was an undrafted player. Okay, nobody wanted. Their receivers have to be the slowest collection of receivers ever.
Agreed.
The offensive line, by almost all accounts, is not in the top half of the league. So what are we talking about? Why? What is this? All this talent? Where's all this talent? Trent Williams is a great player. McCaffrey's a great player. Kittle's a great player. Other than that, they don't have a top 5 wide receiver. They don't have a top 5 offensive line. I mean, if the Niners have a lot of talent, then what's Detroit? Detroit has the best line. Detroit has one of the best receivers. Detroit has 2 of the best running backs. Detroit has arguably the best receiving tight end. I mean, they need Ben Johnson, who's good in Detroit with awesome talent, but Shanahan's not good, and we keep saying, and he's got all this talent, but in reality, they suck. They don't have lots of talent. It's the most overrated. Look at their defensive line. Their defensive line's thin. Their linebackers, they have one good linebacker. They have a super young secondary, a pretty awful special teams unit, a subpar offensive line, the slowest group of receivers known to man. What are we talking about? In a last pick in the draft, they don't have awesome talent. It's like, if your premise is wrong, by definition, your conclusion's wrong. If your premise is, man, the Niners are stacked and loaded on off. No, they're not. Debo is just a name. They're old. These guys have gotten old. Guys get old overnight. The old coach used to say to me, Larry, if you're going to do personnel in this league, let me tell you something right now. I said, what? He said, after a while, all those guys that you love and respect and admire, just big names with big contracts on the back of the jersey. And after a while, they ain't nothing anymore. And that's the reality of the personnel game. And it's true. It's true.
No, this year you're absolutely right, but we're talking about the last 5 years that Kyle has gotten all this credit for being a great coach.
In the Final Four, Los.
I would say the last 5 years the Niners have had more Pro Bowlers than any roster in football.
They've done well with it. They've been in the Final Four. I mean, heck, in college hoop, you don't have to win a national championship if they judge themselves on the Final Four. In the NFL, it's all about who wins the Super Bowl. But if it was about the Final Four, the Niners have gone to 4 Final Fours in the last 5 years.
No
So I'm just saying they've been one of the best teams. Now, you're right. They haven't gotten it done. But look who they're not getting it done to. They're losing to Reed, who's arguably a better coach, who has a better defensive coordinator, a better special teams coordinator, a better quarterback, a better defense overall, a better anchor point to his defense. I mean, they're better. Kansas City is better. I don't care what the odds said. Kansas City is better than the Niners because of Reed and Mahomes and Chris Jones and Dave Taub and Spags. The Niners have a rookie defensive coordinator.
Who hired him?
Shanahan.
Yeah, but why? Yeah, that tells you
who's responsible.
They tried to get Spags himself. They tried to get Belichick. I mean, they need a real defensive coordinator. They need a real special teams coordinator, and they need more talent. It finally caught up to them this year. They whiffed on 7 number ones out of really probably 8 because Ricky Pearsall ain't nothing. I mean, what's Ricky Pearsall? Where was he today? Was Ricky Pearsall out there? I know he got shot. Is Ricky Pearsall really good? I know he got shot. Is he really good?
Who drafted him?
See, that's my thing with Kyle. Is
the Niners drafted him, but I'm just saying, it's like, is he good? Is he a good player? No. So they've missed on 8 ones out of 9, or I should say probably 8 ones out of 10. The only guys they've hit on in the first round are Nick Bosa, 2nd pick overall, and Brandon Ayuk. Other than that, they've missed in the first round. Coupled with the fact that they tried to get Hargrave, which was an ill-advised pursuit. I mean, it's not that complicated. If you don't have any of your top picks and you get rid of 4 or 5 of your depth pieces to go after one guy, then that one guy comes in and he's not very good. Guess what? You're cooked. I mean, here we are. The NFL is a staggered 3-year deal. It really is. If you go look at the 85 Bears, you know what you're going to find? They kicked ass in the draft in the early 80s. If you're going to go look at the 89 Niners, guess what you find? 85, they got Rice, and 86, they got a Hall. And that's how the 88 and 89 and 99ers came about. How did the 1992 and 3 and 5 Cowboys become a dynasty? What they did after Jimmy Johnson took over 91 and 92. 90, 91, 92. So you can almost always look 3 years ahead. And if you look 3 years ahead, what you're going to find is all these Brian Branch, Aiden Hutchinson, Penei Sewell, Detroit kicked ass. And the 49ers, the 21 draft was the Trey Lance draft. The 22 draft was a bomb except for Purdy. The 23 draft was not very good either. They saved themselves with a good 24 draft. But those guys are all rookies. So Pearsall and Cowley are not ready to contribute.
And the drafts that they did well in, they're all getting old. Bosa, Warner, Greenlaw.
Right. They missed, though, in 22 and 21. I mean, the Trey Lance draft, they bombed. They bombed in 22. They bombed in 23. And those guys right now, if they had not bombed in those years, those guys would be 2nd, 3rd, and 4th year players. Probably starters, definitely foundation piece players, and this team would be quite a bit better, but they bombed. And so, I mean, I was thinking about this. What was I going to say to Los? What was I going to say to you? Because I knew you guys were going to be anti-Shanahan. My thing would be this. It's about players. So, and you're right. You're pushing back. Who drafted these guys? Okay, that's fair. It might just be time for Kyle to just coach the team.
Bingo.
Coach the team. How about this? You know what? You're working like a dog. You've aged 15 years in the last 8. You're working like a dog. How about this? You can be involved in our discussions, but you have no say. And you just coach the team that we provide for you. That's what LaFleur does. That's what Mike Tomlin does. That's what a lot of the best organizations do. That's what Sean McVay does. He has a say, and Kyle should have some say.
But is he going to be happy with that? He seems to want to control everything.
It's not, for me, it's not even about happiness. It's just about, I think this might work better. The skill set of sequence plays, design plays, call plays is a totally different skill set to, hey, those 4 guys are standing right there. They're all 6'4", 280. Tell me which of them is not going to make the league, which of them is going to be a backup in the league, which of them is going to be a Hall of Famer. And, who's an all-timer and who's a carpenter, It's a different skill set. And all I would say is, if there's any, I don't know, we don't know who was pushing for who and whose guys who. We don't really know. But I think it's reasonable to assume, guys, that Kyle probably had a hand in many of the 49ers draft picks that involved offensive players, skill position offensive players that were taken, let's say, in the first 3 rounds. So Dante Pettis, Jalen Hurd, C.J. Beathard,
Joe Williams,
Joe Williams,
Joe Williams, yeah.
Trey Sermon,
DJ Price,
Ty Davis Price, all these guys.
It's a lot.
These I think are picks that you could attribute to Shanahan, or at least he had a lot of input in those picks. I would say strip Shanahan of the personnel evaluation responsibility. Let him have a say, but keep him out of it. And I don't know if Adam Peters is a good or bad GM, because the first year they didn't have him, they had their best draft in years. So how much of the failure of 21, 22, 23 was on Peters? I don't know. So I know that he was supposedly hot to trot on Ambry Thomas, who's been one of the guys who hasn't come of age. But I guess I would start there. I think their problem is personnel, and I would strip Kyle of personnel control. And I would then go to Jed and say, Jed, we're not going to come knocking on your door for expensive free agents this year or next year, but we are going to come knocking on your door for big money to attract a premier defensive coordinator and a premier special teams coach, because there's no cap to that. That's where you say, well, what would Eddie D be doing that these guys aren't doing? Eddie D would be taking advantage of all non-capped areas where you can help your football team win. And one of them is the assistant coaches. If there's no cap on what you pay the assistant coaches, Eddie D would pay these guys. He'd double their salary. He'd triple their salary. Oh, you're making 4.5 in Kansas City, Spags? Great. Here, come here. We'll give you a 2-year deal for $18 million. You can make $9 million and change, And it's like, and he'd get his guys. It's going to have to take something extraordinary, because otherwise, if it's just like, hey, the going rate, why the fuck is Spags gonna shank Reed, who he's won multiple rings with? Why is he gonna shank him in the kidneys and say, I'm out of here, I'm going to the Niners? But if you double his salary, then he probably tells Reed, hey, I'm out of here, they're doubling my salary. So I mean, that's how I'd look at it: is find an area that's not capped and go spend some money there. See if you can attract people, and start hitting in the draft, and stop pretending too that, I mean, some of these moves in the draft are just absolutely galling. You're drafting a punter in the 4th round. You're drafting a kicker in the 3rd round. And you're almost acting like we're so fucking loaded that we can just waste, day 2 picks and high day 3 picks on specialists because the rest of our team is so freaking loaded. And you ain't going that good. You're not that deep. You're not that good. You don't have picks to waste. Stop inventing bogus needs and filling them with 3rd and 4th round picks when you can find, Anders Carlson and use that 3rd round pick on a fucking linebacker. I mean, that's how I view it. I'd like to see them start to really win on draft day. And obviously they had a good draft this last year, but they got to start winning consistently.
Los, go ahead.
Yes.
Take what your thoughts are.
Well, I was going to say that I want Shanahan so badly to change. I've wanted him to, get a little bit humble after losses the way he's had them. 2 Super Bowls, and people forget the NFC Championship against the Rams. They're all similar. I wanted him to change because I know the potential that he has to be a head coach. But when you don't see it after 8 years, when you don't see it after 3 losses the way those were, when you continue to see the same mistakes being done, like we're just hoping, he's going to change next year. And that's why trading him is an intriguing proposition, because it gets him out of the building. If he's out of the building, then he can't be saying, I want that wide receiver, even though my center sucks and even though my right tackle sucks. Now, I watch all the press conferences, Larry, so I listen very closely to Shanahan. I listen to his answers to questions. He and Forster are going to tell us from training camp that Brendel and McKivitz are good players, when all of us, including the rest of the roster, knows that they're not. How does that reverberate from the rest of the roster? How do you tell the defensive players like Bosa, who goes up against these tackles, who goes up against McKivitz, hey, he's our starter. We're not going to try to improve him. How do you tell Fred Warner that, these guys that are not very good? How do you say Devondre Campbell's a good player when he's not, when he covers? These are the roster politics that I'm talking about. Hurry up offense, clock management, all these things that he has not improved on. I just don't feel like he's going to get better because he has you see him, Larry, you ask him the questions. I see the questions. You and Grant are the only ones that challenge him. And when you do, both of you do with intelligent questions, I see what he does. He pushes back. And I'm just thinking, damn, is this guy like this? If John Lynch comes up to him, last time I checked, John Lynch is a Hall of Famer. It's not Kyle Shanahan. If you can't listen to John Lynch come up and give you advice, or the owner, Jed York, or Bobby Turner, who is a legendary running back, I wonder what Bobby Turner thinks about Jordan Mason getting no time. A lot of people are not going to say anything in front of this microphone right here about Kyle because they don't want to burn bridges. But if you turn that microphone off and ask off camera, I bet you a lot of people would say some things, and I bet you that locker room has lost a little bit of confidence in Kyle because he keeps making the same mistakes over and over. And anybody, coach, player, even a fucking human being, if you don't learn from your mistakes, then what are we doing here?
Yeah, good point. Let me get to these super chats real quick before we respond. Andre Hanna, $5 says, hey, Larry, if the season ended today with the Niners, who or what position would you draft in round one? Also, is this offseason more of a rebuild or a retool?
Well, I think nobody in the NFL, for the most part, wants to go into a year as a rebuild. So everybody's trying to win every year. I don't know if that's realistic, but that I think is the goal, even for the bad teams. They're trying to have the big turnaround. You got to remember this. One thing in the NFL that happens every year, almost every year, somebody goes from worst to first. That happens all the time. So I don't get we're down. It's not like baseball where it's like, opening day, we're hoping just to be 500 and, we got no shot. I think everybody's, whether it's realistic or not, they're thinking we got a shot. As far as what do the Niners need? The 49ers need to draft great players. It doesn't matter what order, what round, what position, they need to draft great players. So I could say, they need an offensive tackle, but they don't need a pretty good offensive tackle. They need a great player, whether that's a great defensive tackle, defensive end, linebacker, free safety, wide receiver, running back. And to me, I would just go for a great player. Player.
Very good.
And even like, I'll say this based on what I've seen, there's been all this talk around the league about, running backs have no value and, why would anybody draft a running back? And yet the Niners traded for McCaffrey and went to a Super Bowl. You look at Gutekunst and what his offseason was like. He went after two big free agents, Xavier McKinney on the defensive side and Josh Jacobs on the offensive side. Look how good Jacobs was today. I mean, He was incredible. They probably broke 20-plus tackles against the Niners. So, I mean, I know they have McCaffrey, and I know they have Mason. I know they have Garendo, and I know running back is not a position to need. But if they get down to, let's say the Niners are going to pick 15 to 20, somewhere in that range, they're going to be staring right in the face at, and I keep seeing it in the mock drafts that I'm doing, is the Boise State kid, Ashton Gianti. And he's awesome. He's an incredible running back. So, I would not discount even a great running back. They just need a great player. Danny,
producer,
go ahead.
Let me just get through these supers real quick.
Yeah.
Producer Ryan's been waiting all year to get this up there. Broncos greater than 49ers, been saying it all year. All right, Ryan, there you go. Mufasa.
Bo Nix is playing well. Bo Nix is playing really, really well. They're playing well. Denver, I bet them today. I had an afternoon parlay. I took Denver and who else? Seahawks. Denver and Seahawks on the money line. So, yeah, Denver won 29-19. Denver's looking good. Bo Nix threw 42 times today.
Wow. Mufasa says, will this team look dramatically different next year?
I think so.
I think they will.
Well,
you're always going to trade out about it. You're going to trade on a 60. Let's just say you've got a 53-man roster. I would say the odds of them being 15 to 20 new players are pretty good almost every year.
Danny, if I may, because I know Larry's a little bit short on time.
Last one here. Just what happens if Jed asks Kyle to just coach? What do you think?
Oh,
I think he can. I think he should, and I think he would. I mean, what's Kyle going to say? No, I need to be the master of my own domain. I mean, he's gonna.
I think so.
He's going to say what? Trade me, get me out of here, fire me. I will say this though, no more getting rid of Harbaugh, and with that, okay, now he's gone. Now let's start thinking about who we want. No. If you're going to get rid of Kyle Shanahan, you have to respect the fact that he's probably going to go somewhere else right away and be successful. So you sure as hell better have a really, really good plan. But I'll say this. If it was me, if Jed came up to me and said, Krug, you're passionate, you know the Niners, you know our roster, you know the league, what do we need? I would say, Jed, you know what you need? You need to take all the decision-making personnel power away from Kyle and just have him coach the team. And if that means you give him an extra $1 million to not do it, then I would do that. Hey, Kyle, I got a conversation I want to have with you. You're not going to like it at first, but then I think it's going to be great. And then he says, what's up? I don't want you doing personnel, but I really respect you as a coach. Here's an extra $1 million a year for you to be cool with us not having say on personnel, direct say. And then I'm going to take some money, and I'm like maybe $250,000, and I'm going to throw it at Scott McLuhan or John Dorsey to just be in my building throughout the springtime, watching film, being there, consulting with us, helping us get it right. We have to get the draft right. We have to get it right. We cannot, we missed on our first and second round pick, but man, we got a good player in the 5th round. We got a good player in the 7th round. No. We need to hit on the first round. We need to hit on the second round. We need to hit on the 3rd round. John Dorsey went to Kansas City. They got Mahomes. They got all kinds of good players. He went to Detroit. All of a sudden, they get Aiden Hutchinson and all kinds of good players. Pay John Dorsey $500,000. Pay Scott McLuhan $250,000, $500,000. Get one of these guys who doesn't. Because what happens is this: there's a boss, and everybody knows how the boss thinks. And after a while, you stop getting true independent thought from all of your road scouts and all of your personnel people, because they kind of are keenly aware of the thought process of the boss, and they're trying to align with the boss just to maintain their position, because these are good jobs and coveted jobs. I don't want that. I don't want an army full of I don't need a room full of 19 guys who have figured out what John Lynch likes. I need somebody who knows what the fuck they're talking about, who's going to challenge John and say, no. We need to take this defensive lineman and this linebacker and this free safety and this wide receiver. And if we do this, we're going to be back in the NFC Championship game in a year. You know what I mean? I want to put more personnel money into the personnel side. I can leave Lynch. I can leave my rank and file scouts. I just want one more guy who can be that personnel consultant, and I'm willing to pay for it. And then I would just tell Kyle, we'll give you a raise. We'll even extend you, but we're taking personnel control away, and we're doing it differently. And
Larry,
that's what I would do.
Go ahead, Lowe's.
Let me ask you, Larry. Do you think that 99% of the time a GM hires a coach? This is a very unique and different situation where the coach hired the GM. Does that mentally and psychologically give Kyle this power and this feeling that nobody can tell him what to do or take away his responsibilities, as you suggest? Is it possible? I'm just saying. Because he hired Lynch. So technically he's Lynch's boss. In every other roster in the NFL or every other organization in the NFL, the GM is the boss and fires the head coach. Lynch probably can't fire Kyle because Kyle's his boss. Is that fair?
I mean, it's kind of like the structure in New England when Belichick was there with Cesario, where Cesario was brought in under Belichick. Belichick had the final say. I think any structure can work, and I think it's all about communication.
Right.
As long as you communicate and as long as there's some trust there. If there's no trust, then it's not going to work. Like if Kyle doesn't trust Jed, or if he doesn't trust John, he doesn't trust the plan, then it's not going to work. If Kyle at least says, maybe I'm not the best picker of players. I did like Dante Pettis. I did like Jalen Hurd. I did think CJ Beathard was worthy of trading up for. Okay, you know what? I'm willing to give in a little bit but here's the thing. It's going to have to be somebody that Kyle knows their shit. That's it. That's really it. I think Kyle would relinquish control if there was somebody that he respected who was making these decisions. If you're just ripping it out of his hands and giving it to somebody he doesn't respect, it's not going to work, and he's going to push back. And he's not going to want to be there because he's not going to trust that person to pick the right players. But if it's a personnel guy that he absolutely knows his stuff or really believes in, man, I think he would be smart to relinquish some control. But he also got his father in his ear. You got to remember Mike Shanahan. What was Mike's role in Washington? Did he, was there a GM there, or did he have total control? I don't even remember.
That's what makes that's what makes Kyle and his philosophy so crazy to me. Like Mike Shanahan had a Hall of Fame quarterback in John Elway, couldn't win Super Bowls with him. Then he got Terrell Davis and leaned on what? The running game. And Kyle in second halves in big games doesn't rely on his running game. He relies on his quarterback with his dad knowing what he does. It's almost like Kyle wants to do it. Look, Dad, I know you've had success. Because I've heard Kyle in interviews when people compare him to his dad, I see him get a little frustrated and push back. It's almost like he wants his own way, his own style of doing things. So I don't know how much influence his dad has on him, because if it did, he sure as hell would run the ball in fourth quarters of big games more than he does.
Well, I'm just thinking about this situation here in New York with the Giants. They're a mess. The owner, Mara, he's didn't he just fire Dable and the general manager?
Was that today?
I believe so. I thought I read.
I saw that on Twitter, but I didn't think that was. I thought that was just somebody spouting on Twitter. Or you're saying that Joe Shane and Brian Dable both got axed today by the Giants?
I don't know if that is something I saw on Twitter too, or just if it actually happened.
Let me check.
But let's
make
just
sure we know what we're talking about here.
Let's see. I'm looking here too. I don't know if it happened or not.
Well, I'm going to Pro Football Rumors and I'm looking for it.
Or it's about to happen. I guess it hasn't happened yet. Okay. So let me.
It says the latest thing I'm reading says the New York Giants are expected to retain GM Joe Shane, Brian Dable on steady ground ? So it sounds like maybe Shane stays and maybe Dable goes.
All right. Right now they're 2-9, and they've got the second pick in the draft behind Jacksonville. Let's say that they finish with the second. They get the second pick in the draft, or they get the first. If they get the second and a quarterback's available, I don't think Jacksonville, if they get the one, are going to take one of the top quarterbacks, because they've got just Trevor Lawrence signed to a big deal. Would you? This is a what if the Giants said, you know what, we want a fresh start. We want a real coach that's highly thought of. If you worked out a deal with the Giants and you got their number one for the next 2 years and their number two, and you traded Shanahan and Purdy, would you take
Wow.
Cam,
Danny always has to make it just crazy.
Cam Ward?
Both of them.
And well, the reason
I
being,
like Cam Ward, but I mean,
they don't-
Cam Ward is not. Cam Ward's going to have some rough days. Trust me. He doesn't have a huge arm. He doesn't throw tons of anticipation. He's a little bit of a late processor, throw it in there kind of a guy. I like him a lot as far as his poise when running. He reminds me of Lamar Jackson. He's not at all afraid. He's not at all sped up. He's allowed. He moves at his own pace. I like him, but I don't know about the arm strength. I mean, people say they don't like Brock Purdy's arm strength. Brock Purdy's got a better arm than Cam Ward. I'll tell you right that.
I mean,
right
what
now.
about Dion's kid? Is he better, or you think Ward's better?
Sanders.
Yeah,
Shador Sanders is bigger. He's more athletic. I like Cam Ward.
The reason I say this, the Niners were able to get to this window of 4 NFC championships in 5 years, and 2 of the last 3 with the Super Bowl because of Purdy's contract, and they were able to
Purdy's play.
Yeah, Purdy has been great. He's been great.
It's not just anybody with Purdy's contract.
Earlier this year, I'll go on record. I went on record and said that after they played the Rams without their top receivers and everybody was out and Purdy had a great day, I said I thought he was the 5th best quarterback in the league. I think he's regressed a little bit. I think he's still in that 10 to 12 range. I just don't know if Purdy, to pay a guy close to $50 million a year for a guy that I don't know if he's going to ever rise to the top 5-7 quarterbacks in the league. And I'm just thinking
and today was a perfect example, though, Dan. I mean, all this talk about, look at Purdy. Purdy's doing it with all these weapons. Okay, you took Purdy out. You still had Kittle. You still had Debo. You still had CMC. You still had Juszczyk. You still had basically everybody, and they didn't do a whole lot offensively without Brock Purdy. So maybe Brock wasn't really the problem after all.
Well, I don't think Brock is.
Or maybe their weapons are not as good as people think.
Yeah. I just see that the fact that they, I don't know. But getting back to this thing with Kyle,
I'm okay with moving off of anybody for the right price and the right situation. I just don't. I don't think the Niners. I mean, I can't really picture it. So Lynch is going to somehow be the one who trades the guy that hired him. I mean, it's just so not going to happen. And then Jed's gonna, after he moved off of Harbaugh, he's gonna move off of another coach that everybody considers a really good coach.
That's why he won't do it.
That seems
exactly
really
why.
And it's like what? And then if you moved off of Jim Harbaugh, who won a national championship and now has the Chargers with one of the best defenses in pro football, if you moved off of him, and then you're going to move off of Kyle Shanahan, literally less than a full calendar year after he led your team to his 2nd Super Bowl appearance, why would a premier young guy want to come here after seeing the way the Niners have treated 2 of the very best coaches in all of football? I think if they kiss off on Shanahan, they're not going to be getting a big-time coach.
I don't know. It's been 8 years. I don't think you have to I wouldn't fire him. I really would.
No, but you're not, what you're not counting, you're not factoring in here is that you and Niner fans have experienced some frustration and stress because of how this season has gone. But people from the outside aren't looking at Shanahan the same way. They look at him as an outstanding coach, one of the best in the league. So if you fire him,
that's why.
But if you fire him or try to trade him,
you could get a haul.
You might be able to get something for him. But are you going to be able to attract his replacement? Is a good coach with options going to choose to work for Jed York and the Niners after they parted ways with Jim Harbaugh within a couple years of going to the Super Bowl and parted ways with Kyle Shanahan within a year of going? That is going to scream to the heavens Instability. Don't go there. Beware. Coaches, beware. And there's no way they're getting Ben Johnson.
I think
no
if somebody
way.
gets a 5-year contract offer with good money, they're coming.
But he's not going to come here after you just dump. He's going to say the same. I mean, it's like anything else. If you have a buddy who's like talks a lot of shit, and he's talking a bunch of shit about one of your other buddies, when you're hearing him talk shit, hey, when I'm not around, this guy's going to be talking shit about me because that's what this guy does. And so, believe me, these other coaches are going to see that, hey, Jed York doesn't support his head coach. He got rid of Harbaugh. He was 44-19-1 and went to the Super Bowl. He just got rid of Shanahan. He took him to 2 Super Bowls. The coaching fraternity is going to look at that and go, instability, no way in hell I'm going there. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they'll view it as Shanahan's not the right guy. I'll go there. I'll be the guy. But I think they're going to look at it and go, man, I could go there, and then he could trade me somewhere.
Yeah, sorry to cover your face here for a sec. This is pretty large print. It says, Titus Smoller donates $10, says, I don't want to let Kyle go and be the next Andy Reid. I want to win with him, but I do need him to be less stubborn and to evolve, starting by playing Mason more. I hope the media keeps after him about that.
Well, I for sure will. I mean, because to me, it's gotten to a point now where it's obvious. Every game that goes by, you had 10 games where the 49ers had a top 10 rush EPA. They've now had 3 games with McCaffrey, and they're somewhere between 20th and 25th in rush EPA in those 3 games. So it's dramatic. It's a dramatic backslide. And it's pretty overwhelming that Mason and Garendo have gotten no touches. It really has. It really has. I agree with Titus wholeheartedly. I'm not ready to fire Shanahan, but I'm going to be stubborn. It's my way or the highway. No, it's not.
Yeah,
no, it's not your way or the highway, because it's going to be the highway, because you're not winning enough, and you're not going to have enough support if you don't win more, and you can't win this way. So you're going to have to make changes.
Well, I'm definitely all for it if he can, be humble and change. And I think possibly could work out. But let me push back on this whole Andy Reid leave and coach, because that's always a checkmate end of a debate when somebody brings that up. But let me just kind of counter to this. Jimmy Johnson won Super Bowls with Dallas with a lot of talent. He left and went to Miami. Didn't win
and
another
a lot of talent there.
Didn't win a Super Bowl there.
No, but he did. But he did draft Jason Taylor, Hall of Famer, Sam Madison, great player, Tim Bowens, great player. I mean, he seriously built the Dolphins into a phenomenal, talented team. With draft picks.
No, definitely. Mike Holmgren won a Super Bowl with the Packers. Went to Seattle, didn't win a Super Bowl. Mike Ditka won a Super Bowl with the Bears. A lot of talent. Went to New Orleans, didn't win. The point I'm trying to make, guys, is that everybody thinks Kyle's just going to leave and just automatically win a Super Bowl with another team. If he couldn't win with this roster the last 5 years, you're going to think if he goes to the Panthers, he's going to win a Super Bowl in the next 5 years, or the Bears? Like, is that what we're saying? Like, is that what we're afraid of? Like, we have this girlfriend that's beautiful. Kyle's like this beautiful, fine girlfriend that you have, but she always is drunk. She's toxic as hell, but you can't get rid of her because you're afraid somebody else will have her. Who cares? Let somebody else have her.
I'm not worried, Los, about what he does. I'm more worried about who you're getting to replace him.
I agree.
I'm okay. I mean, like, let's say you run him off. He goes to wherever USA and wins, but you go to some other coach and you win. Do you care? No,
not at all.
It's all about you. It's all about do you win.
I think there's the fear of the Tom Sula and the Jim
that's
Kelly.
Exactly what it is.
That's what everybody's talking about when they say, "Well, look what happened," But look what happened when you hired Kyle from Atlanta. It turned out pretty well. He's been a great coach, but he seems to keep this area where he will not go off of He runs his guys into the ground. We talked about it last year, what he was doing with CMC. Why is he not giving Mason more touches? Why is he not giving I can't remember who the other back was at the time. Mitchell. He wouldn't give him any touches. And so what happens? CMC's running to the ground. He's basically, who knows if he's ever going to return to what he did last year. We don't know if that is nagging, if it slowed him down. I know this, in football, generally guys don't get better each year after they pass, a certain age, especially a running back who's been in the league for 7 years. Most running backs last about 3 or 4 at the most. So is McCaffrey going to come back to where he was, or is he going to be digressing in the future years? So it's this mindset. To me, being a head coach is not just X's and O's, calling plays. It's about everything else that we've been talking about. It's the stubbornness of who plays and who doesn't play. It's, this problem with the clock management that Los is talking about. I mean, he can draw up all the great plays, but it's his mindset that thinks, I don't need to do a 2-minute offense. My plays are too good. I don't need to let my quarterback call audibles. I've got a system built in that there's a check down that he can go to. And yet we heard this previous quarterback last week on Twitter. I can't remember his name, but he was with the Niners in training camp with them.
Kurt Bankert.
Bankert. He said, this is the only team. Other teams are getting to know the offense or what Kyle's going to do. And they've got his number because the quarterback can't check down out of that and call an audible. And sometimes your play isn't going to be right. I mean, you don't know what the defense is going to call when you call a play. So you call your play.
And that's not true. I mean, it's not that he can't check down to an audible. It's that it's not normally a quarterback audibles at the line. He's got a whole catalog of options. Kyle has a second play that you audible to. So every play has got an audible element inside to a certain audible. And it's supposed to make it streamlined for the quarterback because the quarterback doesn't have to sit there and think about what does he want to audible to. You just run the play or you run the audible off the play. So it's supposed to free up the quarterback to not have to have a catalog of options in his head that he has to choose from with the clock ticking. So it's not meant in any way to handicap the quarterback or limit the quarterback in any way. It's supposed to actually help the quarterback by having an audible play, a second play that fits your personnel grouping, that fits your formation, that fits the play that you were originally calling in the huddle. So it's not supposed to be.
Since we're talking about quarterback, would you pay Purdy 50 or 60 million?
Yes, I would. I would pay him 50 million.
Really?
That's the going rate. I mean,
what is that going to do to the rest of your cap room for other positions?
You're paying your quarterback. Do you want to have a good quarterback or not? Franchise quarterbacks make $50 million in the NFL in the present.
Right, but what
in the neighborhood?
Yeah, okay.
45, 50. I mean, Mahomes makes 45. Some guys make 50. Some guys, the guys who signed most recently make the most. Guys who signed, further back make less. But yeah, I would pay him the going rate of a franchise quarterback. You don't have a franchise quarterback. If you don't have him as your franchise quarterback, you have no franchise quarterback. So yeah, I'd rather pay Brock Purdy than cut him or try to find somebody else to be the franchise quarterback.
Getting real quick back to Kyle and getting into his mindset. Think about this, guys. This is crazy to me. We're getting on him right now for not running Mason and not going running back by committee because he has 3 good running backs. Because that's what you do during the long course of a long season, especially when you've played a lot of playoff games the last 5 years. You want to keep guys fresh. But in Super Bowl 54, when he had the hottest player on the planet in Raheem Mostert, and it was one game to win a championship, You should play your hot player, and you should go on one guy instead of running back committee. What did he do? He started Tevin Coleman and Mostert coming off of 228 yards and 4 touchdowns and was a breakaway threat. Didn't touch the ball until halfway through the second quarter. Those are little things that I saw very early on about Kyle. That blew me away. And right now we're talking about him going running back committee, so he went running back committee for one game when you're supposed to do it for the longevity of a season to keep guys fresh. Is that not backward, or is that not backward? And now he won't do it with Mason, who is a hell of a player.
I mean, he's done it before. I mean, people asked that question this week. Why don't you play your other guys? And I think it was Barrows who said, you like to play, play one guy. And he's like, well, actually, when we first got here, we ran a committee. They just feel like CMC is so much better. But you know what?
Is he?
That's fine. But I mean, now you have 3 games of an example that he's not doing better, that he's not the same guy. And it's like last year you let him call his shots. This year, don't let him call his shots. But he seems like he wants to let him call his shots. So it's just, it's amazing, really. I mean, come on. You went from McCaffrey. You went from Mason all year. He's 3rd in the league in rushing. You go back to McCaffrey. I think the rest of us all kind of thought, all right, they got a top 10 rushing attack. They're going to bring back CMC. It's going to mean they're going to probably have like a top 5 rushing attack. They're going to have a 3-headed monster. They're going to be able to run the ball 60% of the time. And it's just going to unleash everything. And then they brought back CMC and they just took the ball out of the hands of Garendo and Mason.
God.
And they don't have this incredible running game. Their running game's actually regressed. It's unbelievable.
When we look at actual contracts of quarterbacks, one of the things I want to ask you on this list here, that who are you, when you look at this list, which quarterbacks are earning their money in terms of which quarterback? Is Kyler Murray ever going to win a championship? No. Stafford's already won one. He's done. He's not going to win another one. Dak Prescott, never going to win a championship. Mahomes, yes. Jackson, he's got a shot. Josh Allen, he's got a shot. Joe Burrow's got a shot. Watson, no. Goff got a shot. This is just their cap hits. Geno Smith, no. Cousins, no. Love, maybe. Herbert, I doubt it. Rodgers, no. Lawrence, no. Hurts, I don't think he wins another one or gets to another one. Carr, no. Tua, no. Bryce Young, CJ Stroud. So you look at this top, just the top, say, 10. The only one that's won a Super Bowl is Mahomes. That's my thing is if you got a franchise quarterback, and I understand you got to pay a quarterback to compete for a title, but if I just don't see it working out a lot. And these quarterbacks, they drag down your caps for the team. I mean, look at how bad that contract was for Deshaun Watson. Cleveland's a mess now for years. Joe Burrow, I love Joe Burrow. I would take him in a heartbeat. But he hasn't been able to he's not even have a winning record with the Bengals this year. So I guess my point on this is, why pay a guy $50 million when you don't have to pay him right now? You could let him go the 4th year and see how he performs. We just saw this with Ayuk. You caved there. You don't have to. He's under contract. He could, I'd be fine signing him to like, say, 35, 40 million a year, because that's, but to pay him 50 to 60, I think it's risking putting the franchise back if he doesn't keep performing like he did last year, and his first year when he led him to the NFC Championship before he got hurt.
He's a terrific young quarterback. I mean, my God. Seriously,
he is.
It's getting ridiculous. This whole conversation is getting ridiculous. Why? Because, we're watching this quarterback really, really, really close. So every time he has any kind of a hiccup, it's like we notice it. And we know to the minute where his value is. If he has a great game, his value's higher. If he has a bad game, it's like he's not him and all this stuff.
I just think 50 to 60.
People are in a major rush to tell you that C.J. Stroud's better than Brock. C.J. Stroud lost today at home to the Tennessee Titans.
I agree.
He was sacked 4 times.
Yeah.
He had a 78.7 rating. He was 20 of 33 for 247, 2 picks. All right. They were horrible on third down. What did they complete? They were 3 of 13 on third down. So the quarterback down, he was terrible. He was intercepted twice. They committed 11 penalties. I mean, they lost at home to a team that rolled in 2-8. And is anybody saying Stroud's not the guy? Is anybody saying
no? But
Stroud, Stroud might not be the guy. Stroud's might not be the guy. Stroud's not really. He wasn't great today. And if Stroud continues to play today the way, how come
my point
nobody's
on this,
losing their mind on Stroud?
My whole
it's like
point on this
guess what? Guys have bad
Stroud's
games.
regressed.
The hardest thing to evaluate. Brian Billick said it. The hardest thing to evaluate is the quarterback versus what's going on around the quarterback. So, yeah, what's going on around Stroud right now is his offensive line is not that good. And he's starting to take hits. And today their run game averaged 2.4 yards a carry. And Joe Mixon went for 1.6 a carry and got totally bottled up by Tennessee's defense. And he was asked to do more, and he couldn't do it. And he got sacked 4 times, and they lost. So, but is Stroud still a great young quarterback? Yeah, he still is.
But my point on this, Larry, is not that Brock's not a really, really good quarterback. Is do we have to pay him right? Why do you have control?
You're going to pay him more in the future.
So what?
I mean,
if he's
great, how about this?
Have
some conviction.
Great, pay him.
But I mean, don't stop hedging. Do you believe in your quarterback or do you not? You sound like a guy who doesn't believe in the quarterback. If you don't believe in the quarterback, don't pay him. I do believe in the quarterback, so I'd rather save money. I'd rather save money and pay him right now, and potentially save a little money up front.
I just think
paying him right now.
$60 million for a guy. Look, that's
the going rate.
He's been phenomenal, but now he's injured with his shoulder. Is he injury prone? We don't know that. He had his elbow.
Injury prone?
It was a freak accident, the hit, the arm. But now he's injured again with his shoulder. This is his 2.5 year. He hasn't played 3 full years yet.
But he's played a ton of games. He's played almost all the games.
I'm not saying he's not
played with a broken
really
rib.
Good quarterback, and he has the potential to be a top 5 quarterback in the league.
He'd be even better if they prioritized offensive line. Imagine him being protected.
Yeah, I'm just saying, if you pay him $60 million and he doesn't perform and he doesn't have the talent around him, and they're just an average team that gets into the playoffs and they can't get done, you're capping yourself for the future. I just don't think I would sign him to 40-45 million max. And if he's not willing to take that, I would say, okay, we play the 4th year and we're going to franchise you if you have a great year. If you don't, we might let you walk. Why do we have to always pay guys, IU?
Why do you want that kind of uncertainty at the most important position on your team? That seems crazy.
Because he's injured again. He's
injured again. This is the first start he's ever missed.
Well, he missed. Well, right. He did. He got hurt and he came back. But
what are we talking about? And Jordan Love. I mean, all these people. Jordan Love's amazing. He was 13 of 23 for 163, 2 touchdowns today.
I guess what I'm saying is, if I'm paying somebody
amazing.
$60 million a year, he's got to be super, super special. And I don't know if Brock is that super, super special guy. The guy that is a Josh Allen, is a Patrick Mahomes, is a Joe Burrow. To me, those are the 3 best quarterbacks in the game that are difference makers. I don't know if Brock's really a difference maker when he has the players. He looks like he's a pretty darn good player. But the 49ers receivers this year, we've all agreed, they don't have anybody. Debo's washed. Ayuk's out. Pearsall's AWOL. He hasn't caught a pass, I think, in 2 weeks. Jennings is really good, but he's not the deep threat guy. He's your possession guy. So if you're going to have this type of team, you sign Brock to a $60 million deal, you're not going to get more great players. You're just not. You're going to have average receivers now.
Then they really will have to hit on the draft because they'll need a lot of cheap labor. Larry,
So
let me ask you.
that's my point. Not that I don't like Brock. I love Brock. I would love to see Brock be here, but I think if you pay him that money when you don't have to, I think what you do is you strap the team for the future.
Larry, if you could keep only one, would you keep Purdy or Shanahan?
Wow.
I know, it's tough. It's kind of like Chris Webber and Don Nelson all over again. I hated letting go of Chris, by the way.
I mean, I would keep both. But I guess if I had to keep one and not the other, I'd probably keep Purdy.
Butthead.
I agree.
I'd probably keep Purdy. But you know what? I do think Shanahan's a really good coach, though. And you look around football, there aren't too many guys I'd rather have than Shanahan.
You know the younger generation.
If I could get Sean McVay, yeah. If I could get Andy Reid, man, yeah. But I mean, it's like there's only a couple guys, really.
You know what's intriguing about Ben Johnson, Larry, is the three of us. The younger generation knows about Walsh. They know about those teams of the '80s through the internet and through YouTube. We lived it. We saw it week by week. The thing that's intriguing to me about Ben Johnson is, man, he steps on your throat. He is up 41-6, and he's throwing hook and laterals. I mean, that to me was very Walsh-like. The one knock, one of the many knocks I have about Kyle is, to use an analogy of a boxer, he keeps fights close. He wants to go to the scorecards. He wants to go to a decision. And when a game is close, then a fumbled punt or a bad penalty or a missed blocking assignment is going to cost you a game. Ben Johnson just seems, I don't know if he's smarter than Kyle. Maybe he's not. But I know that he just keeps adding on and adding on. And yes, he has the weapons. I completely understand he has more weapons than Kyle does this year. But Kyle's had weapons last year, and he didn't exactly put the foot on the gas. He lets teams hang around, and he gives up some of these leads. So to me, Ben Johnson's very intriguing because he's a throwback coach, and that he just blows teams out. And that's what we were used to. We were used to the Niners being the best team in the league and having the best coach in the league. And that's impossible to beat. That's why the Niners beat teams 43-17, 30-3, and 55-10. There were knockouts. And Kyle, in his tenure here, last year he had the best team in football. And the Packers hung around and almost beat him. The Lions hung around and almost beat him. And then, say what you will about Mahomes being the best quarterback of his generation or something, but the Niners had a better roster than them. They should have beat them. Mahomes has thrown 5 picks against the Niners in 3 games, and he's 3-0 against them. That's because the offense didn't show up. So,
yeah. Real quick here, I've never seen back-to-back 12-man penalties. Neither have I. And then on this paying Brock, HR says, paying Brock like he's Steph Curry when he's Corey Maggette is what dumb franchises do. Thanks for those donations.
I will say this: if Kyle does get traded, whatever, and leaves, and he changes his ways, then I'll really be pissed. Because if he all of a sudden, like my checklist, clock management, hurry up offense, roster politics, conservative by nature, and special teams. What if he does his new team? He changes and does all this, and I would say to him, why didn't you do this with the Niners when you were here? Why? Like, you're a very smart guy. Like, these are basic fundamental, like page 1, 2, and 3 of a coach's handbook. Those 5 things I just mentioned. And in 8 years of being here, Larry, is he better in any of them? Honestly, we're not talking X's and O's. Just in those 5 things, is he better now than he was in 2017? Because I don't think he is.
I think the thing that got me today because I was not, I've been a big Shanahan supporter, but what got me today is Jordan Mason runs for 16 yards and he's gone.
Ouch.
It's like, well, why not run the play again? I mean, what Bill Walsh did is he took what the defense gave you. That drive in the 1981 NFC Championship against the Dallas Cowboys, the Cowboys had 6 defensive backs thinking, they're going to pass. And he just ran, and he ran. Linville Elliott, sweep. Linville Elliott, sweep left, right. Why? Because the defense was giving him that.
That's good coaching.
Kyle, if somebody's going to give you something, and Mason just ran off left tackle for 16 yards, why not go back to it? If the defense stops it, but he not only doesn't go back to it, he takes Mason out of the game. It's like that to me tells me he's not seeing what all of us are seeing, and he's the head coach. He should be able to see that. That is a weakness that he has to deal with, because you're not putting out your best players or guys who are giving you the best opportunity to win. Is CMC better than Mason? Absolutely. But is he better right now? I'm not so sure.
He's going off of reputation. He's going off of Debo's reputation and CMC's reputation, and they're highly paid. Maybe he has to answer to the owner about, you got to play the guys. Screw that. Win the game. Put the best players on the field, no matter what their pay grade is or what draft they were out. I mean, Purdy's the starting quarterback, and he's a 7th rounder. He chose the better quarterback over Trey Lance, a 1st rounder. Great. That's what you're supposed to do. But sometimes he does not do that. And here's another thing, Larry, about Kyle that I know bothers you is he defers the coin. If he wins the coin toss, he defers. Why? He wants to double lap. I want to score at the end of the first half, and I want to score the first and the second half. Great. How many times have we watched Kyle, and in playoff games at the end of the first half, sit on it? Wait a minute. Your philosophy is to score and score again. Why are you sitting on it and getting conservative before the first half? He did it in the Super Bowl. He did it against the Packers last year. So, again, that's something that he has not changed. And that's, again, goes to the conservative nature that I'm talking about. It's like you're going against your own philosophy there. So, like I said, I think Kyle has all the potential in the world to be not just a good coach, but a great coach. But until he changes these things, I think he's always going to be stuck in that second gear and never get it to 4th.
I think Kyle reminds me a little bit of Farhan in a way. He's so smart that he thinks he tries to outsmart people by his intelligence. Kyle is one of the best offensive minds in the NFL. In fact, most people would say he's at the top of the list right behind Andy Reid. But as Los is saying, he will not change some of his ways, which keeps him from being able to get over the top. And that's my biggest gripe is that, he had the talent, and now the talent looks like it's starting to wane. It looks like the Niners all of a sudden overnight just got old. And I don't know if it's a Super Bowl hangover because they've been playing deep into January for 4 of the last 5 years, and a lot of this roster is just tired, or if these guys are just washed. Debo looks to me like he's never going to get back to Debo of 21. Okay. That Debo's gone. Warner is starting to get older in age. Bosa is starting to look more like Joey Bosa than Nick Bosa. And that's what happens as you get older in the NFL. It's a tough game. It's a grind. And that's why I say you get the best performance out of these guys in like 5, maybe 6, 7 years tops. But it's a little different for some of the guys like Trent Williams because, that's a position where you can use your strength a lot more and you're just built differently. But these skill positions, it's hard to stay that good for that many years unless you are at the Mahomes level, the Aaron Rodgers, the great ones, the Peyton Mannings, the Elways, the Montanas, the Steve Youngs. I mean, these guys are great, the Jerry Rices, all these guys, but they don't – typically guys don't last as long in this game. And I think the Niners, as I look at their roster, it looks to me like they're getting old in some key positions. And if you sign Purdy to 50, 60 million, you're going to have to not sign a lot of these guys. And you're going to have to let go of an Aaron Banks. You may have to let go of, like Hufanga and some of the other guys that are younger. You're going to have to let go of, are you going to be able to keep some of these younger guys like that you just drafted in a few years when their contracts come up? Guys like Mustafa and Renardo Green, and are you going to be able to keep these guys? I don't think you can if you got a big, huge cap hit.
If I may real quick, I'll repeat a story real quick that I've said on this channel before. I've never said it in front of Larry, and he'll smile and understand it as I'm telling it. And this is directed toward the younger people in the chat that are so fearful if Kyle leaves that the Niners are all of a sudden going to win 3 or 4 games. The year was 1988. Bill Walsh's last year in San Francisco. Niners, as we know, go down 92 yards, Montana to Taylor, win the Super Bowl. Walsh retires. And Larry knows this, and so does Dan, because we lived it. The narrative in that offseason when Walsh left was, how the hell are the Niners going to keep winning without the genius?
Is Larry frozen, or is he?
No, he's listening.
Oh, okay. There's no. Yeah.
How are the Niners going to win without a certifiable genius that has won Super Bowls, not blown them, won them? How are they going to do it? Seifert is nice, but he's a defensive coordinator. What's he going to do? You know who heard that all off season? The players. I've seen documentaries, and I've seen the players say, we were sick and fucking tired of hearing how Walsh was the only reason this team won. Walsh this, Walsh that, Walsh, everywhere you see. It's like, we're pretty damn good too. The next season, under Seifert, who's not as good a coach as Walsh, the Niners arguably, in my opinion, had the best team, maybe of all time. Certainly
89?
Certainly the best 49er team of all time. Their playoff wins were 43-17 over the Vikings, 30-3 over the Rams, and 55-10 over John Elway and the Broncos. The players were sick and tired of the head coach getting all the credit as to why this team wins. And when he leaves, we're just going to fall apart and be a 500 team. They had a chip on their shoulder. So I know this roster is not as talented as that roster. I get it. But you don't think if Kyle does leave and the players are going to hear it, oh my God, whoever they hire, Ben Johnson, whoever it may be, the players are going to hear it. How are we going to win without Kyle? Oh my God. I'm telling you, this team is not going to win 3 or 4 games if they keep most of their talent and they draft well again. If they trade Kyle and get 2 first-round picks and have 3 first-round picks, and they hit on 2 or 3 of them, they're going to be a good team again. I don't know if they're going to win the Super Bowl, and I don't know if it's going to be a better coach than Kyle. But talent wins games too. And that 88-89 team story that I just told you is a perfect example of that.
That's a good point.
Hey, I just want to bring up history. I told you it would put a smile on Larry's face. He knows that story.
Well, I mean, come on, man. I mean, it's crazy talk. I mean, it's
you did something nobody's ever been able to do. You made Larry speechless.
No, I was just waiting for you guys to finish. I personally, I mean, you're wishing, first of all, that team won with George Seifert because they were fucking loaded. The team was loaded. That's not this team. This team's not going to suddenly. And you guys are wishing so hard for Shanahan to be out that you've lost your reasoning capability. Neither of you have gone in the room, but you're both trying to say that he's lost the room. I can't listen to people say that a guy's lost the room when they've never been in the room and they haven't talked to any of the players. And nobody has said anything that even approaches even questioning Kyle. And yet you guys have a mutiny, like an imminent mutiny. I mean, it's coming. So, I mean, I don't know what to say to that. I mean, all I can say is I go in there every week. I talk to the players. I don't get a sense that any of them have lost confidence in Kyle. things haven't gone the Niners' way this year. There's no
So
question
what do you think
about that.
what do you think the problem is then this year?
Or turn the microphone off and talk off the record and see what they say.
What are you asking? Are you asking me to ask them? What are you asking, Dan?
No, I'm asking you, what do you think the problem is this year?
I just told you. I've told you like 9 times. You don't want to listen. The problem is that they missed on 7 first-round picks. Probably
But whose fault is that?
them, the organization, the regime, John and Kyle. They are responsible.
Right.
Right?
Doesn't Kyle have control over personnel?
Well, he has control over the final roster, but Lynch is supposed to be in charge of the draft and free agency. I mean, it's supposed to be Lynch as the general manager. Kyle's supposed to be the head coach. Either way, it doesn't really matter. It's
So
both
you
of
think-
their responsibilities.
But
I mean, you're not accounting for regular life, which is that people you draft players and people get old. You don't stay great forever. You have a run. Your run ends, then you've got to build it back up. That's the way it goes. I mean, but I mean, you're rooting so openly for Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson is a 37-year-old guy who's been an offensive coordinator for the equivalent of like 45 minutes. Kyle Shanahan's been an offensive coordinator in the NFL for years. You're saying that Ben Johnson, who's got arguably the best offensive line and maybe the best weapons in the entire league, and yet Ben Johnson is the answer. Really, if you were on it, you would be like, it's the Lions GM. Give me Brad Holmes. Give me John Dorsey. Those are the guys who drafted. People were ripping the Lions when they drafted Jahmyr Gibbs. People were critical of some of the Lions picks when they took Penei Sewell. That's the guy. It's Holmes and Dorsey. The Lions' greatness is not about scheme. The Lions' greatness is about personnel. And so, the Niners' fall from grace is also not about scheme. It's about the lack of personnel. So that's it. I mean, that's it.
So if we said no on Ben Johnson, what about Bill Belichick?
I'm not saying that Ben Johnson's not a good coach. I'm just saying that you're taking a guy who is 37, who's only been an offensive coordinator since 2022. And you're just assuming that you're going to take him away from this super talented team in Detroit. You're going to bring him here. And then all of a sudden the Niners are just going to be Detroit? No, it's not the way it works. And it's not the way it even potentially could work. What if you really want to copy Detroit, then you've got to hit in the draft at the beginning of the draft, and you got to hit the way they hit. It's not, I mean, Ben Johnson's nice. I'm not saying he's not, but you guys you're attributing greatness to a Ben Johnson when in reality it's great personnel. It's an awesome job of personnel evaluation, and Ben Johnson's the offensive coordinator who's inherited all these players.
Joe Brady.
We don't even know if Ben Johnson even wanted any of these
but there's
players.
other options. I mean, you don't have to.
But I mean, that's the one that everybody's saying. People are saying, "Oh, you know what? Go get Ben Johnson." I'm okay with moving off Shanahan. I'm not related to Shanahan. I don't need to have Shanahan as the head coach. All I'm saying is I've seen this movie before. You had Jim Harbaugh. People were tired of him. You got rid of him, but you got rid of him before you had an idea of what you were going to do to replace him. And then you got stuck in a down cycle. And then Shanahan came in years later and had to revive the entire thing. And it took 2 or 3 years just to undo the mistakes of the previous 2 regimes. So that's all I'm saying. All I'm saying is it's not about the X's and the O's. It's about the Jimmies and the Joes. It's about the players. If you had better players, you'd be fine. The problem isn't with the scheme. It's not with Kyle. The problem is they have missed on too many players and they've made bad decisions. And that's where they're at right now. And that's where you have to be able to snap your fingers and get out of it.
I think that's where we differ a little bit, because I put that on Kyle, a lot of these misses, because he had to get his way. You know, I look at the trades they gave away for, the number 1 picks for Trey Lance. That was Kyle's pick. That was Kyle going, I want Trey Lance.
You don't know that, Danny. You don't know that.
You think that John Lynch overruled Kyle Shanahan on that?
I don't even know that it was John's pick. For all we know, it could have been Jed's pick. For all we know, that it could have been an organizational pick. We don't know. We don't really know. We know they made the pick. We know it all falls on Kyle's responsibility. We know that the success or failure is all about Kyle. I'd like to think that Kyle had a big say in it, but
I guarantee
they
Kyle
may have said, hey, you know what? The appetite here is don't take retread Mac Jones. Take somebody who's more athletic. Take some any. Who knows? Maybe he didn't have the conviction. Maybe he had conviction in Mac Jones, but then he wasn't that convicted, and enough people in the room said go with Trey Lance, and he said, because here's the thing: for a guy who picked Trey Lance, if you're attributing it all to Kyle, he sure hasn't lost any bloom off the rose. It doesn't appear with the general manager or with the owner. So if he really picked Trey Lance like against their wishes, don't you think he'd be on a little bit more of the hot seat right now? I get the sense that it might have been an organizational thing and that Kyle might have gone along with it. It's still his responsibility and it's still his track record. But I never got the sense that he was super excited about Trey. He just didn't seem like he was.
At 31 this last year, both Larry and I wanted Zach Frazier or Jackson Powers Johnson, a stud center, to man that offensive line. Because if you have a really great center, you're halfway there to having a really great offensive line. And the best Niners teams have always had really good offensive lines. Larry, from the very start of training camp, Forster came out and said, it wasn't Kyle, it was Forster that said that they do not as an organization prioritize offensive line. They think that they would rather have playmakers and get offensive linemen later in the draft. Now, I don't think deep down you believe in that philosophy. I sure as hell don't. But why is that more of a Forster thing or is that more of a Kyle thing in your opinion?
I mean, I think it's a 49er organizational thing that goes back to McKittrick. I mean, they won championships here with no offensive linemen. Harris Barton was a first-round pick. Nobody else was. They won in 81, 84, 88, 89, 94. None of those teams had first-round blue-chip offensive linemen. Now, when Harbaugh took over, they had drafted before he had arrived both Mike Iupati and Anthony Davis. And, look at the Steelers revival with Zach Frazier, Mason McCormick. Both those guys are I love both those guys. I in fact, in my, lead up to the draft, I was really most excited about 3 offensive linemen, the 3 that the Steelers drafted.
Yeah.
Fatanu, McCormick, and Frazier. And I did tons of mock drafts and talked a lot about Frazier. And I think the Niners, Pooney had a bad day today, but if you had added Frazier and Pooney, I think you'd be a lot better off than you are right now. I'll say this. Lynch just went on the radio on Friday morning, and he maintained to the audience on a 50,000 watt radio station that the Niners offensive line is good, and that he really likes the offensive line. And that was like, what? Are you serious? So he really likes the offensive line. What was the other thing? I forget the other thing he said, but he had said something on Friday. There was one other point that just escaped me, but he basically made 2 points, and both of them were kind of dubious. It was like, really? I think one of them was the offensive line's better than you think.
Was it DeAndre Campbell's playing well?
No, who was the other person that he was touting that I was like, what? Yeah, now I'm zoning, I'm forgetting. But he basically was trying to say that this offensive line is playing well and that the offensive line's good. And yet PFF says it isn't. And Lynch openly mocks PFF and is just like, well, those guys, in their basement or whatever. But seriously, how many times can you tell us that Jake Brendel's good when Jake Brendel has these huge penalties and huge moments and isn't good? I don't get it. But to me, it's like the 49ers would have been better off investing in. He insists that Ricky Pearsall's really good. Yeah. And it's like, well, wait a second. I don't see I definitely don't see a big guy in Pearsall. He's not huge. I don't see a burner. He's not super fast. So if he's not that big and he's not that fast, he'd have to just have these rare ball skills and he doesn't seem rare in any way, shape, or form. He doesn't, that doesn't seem like a great pick to me.
A little bit like Pods with the Warriors. He's like,
there's not a lot. There's not a lot of there. I mean, I like Ricky, nice guy. Nothing to dislike. But I don't see it. I'm not seeing it. I mean, he doesn't do anything. He doesn't catch the ball. He doesn't do much. He hasn't done much. Let's just say that. So, I mean, Jerry Rice didn't do a whole lot initially either, but I'm a little concerned. So, like, they've missed. Why are they at where they're at? They've missed a lot in the first round, and when you miss in the first round, you're missing out on the best players on your roster. I mean, imagine if the 49ers, forget 7 or 8, because that's the truth. They've really missed on 7 or 8 first-round draft choices since they've been in this regime, which is a short amount of time to miss on that many picks. Forget 8, because that would be unbelievable. Imagine if the 49ers had 4 more first-round talents on their roster scattered throughout. They would be a lot better football team than they are right now. That's if they went 4 for 8 instead of 8 for 8. Some teams go 8 for 8. If they went 8 for 8, they'd still be running with the Lions and the Chiefs and all the best teams in pro football. But instead they went 0 for 8, and they're looking like a team that's pretty thin once these injuries have set in. And they don't look very good right now. And this one guy in here is like Larry's hate on Pearsall. It's not hate. It's just I watch the games and I can see that he doesn't do anything in the games. It's not about hate.
Yeah,
go jerk all you want to Ricky, all you want. At the end of the day, it's not about hate. It's about here's the fucking box score, and he ain't in it. And he played, and he played last week and didn't do anything. He had 2 balls thrown to him and didn't do anything. So this is your first round draft choice.
Right.
There, in a real world, there's expectations of your first round draft choice. He's not looking good. So right now they're getting very little out of the first round. Very little.
I can't stand that word hate. It's constructive criticism. We're seeing what the guy is doing or not doing, and we're just calling it as we see it. Nothing more, nothing less. So stop with the hate word, please.
I mean, call it hate if you want, but I mean, you're a fucking idiot. Seriously. Why? Because I'm noticing that a guy was picked in the first round isn't doing anything.
Right.
Sorry. I'm sorry. This isn't kindergarten. This isn't. There's no participation trophies. This isn't 5th grade soccer. This is pro fucking football, and you either do or you don't.
There we go. Let me get a couple more of these super chats in here, Larry. There we go. People who think we should fire Shanahan are overreacting. The whole league is hoping and praying that we let him go. They are salivating at the mouth. We didn't execute, and we have injuries. Calm down. Okay.
I could have written that.
Yeah. It's definitely a divided fan base. For sure.
We got another one. Blackeza. Shanahan fakes himself out. I believe he thinks the other head coach has adjusted to what he hasn't even presented. Just go the well, man. Go to the well, man. I think is what he's saying.
I think that stat that you put out earlier, Danny, on Larry's channel earlier was very telling in that in 1-score games, Kyle's winning percentages. What was it? 376?
Something like that. It was 3. He was like ranked 119th out of 124 coaches who played over 40 games, coached over 40 games. They've lost. So he's losing over 60% of the time when it's a 1-score game. which
that's something that is pretty powerful.
now you can also look at it in the first couple years. If they were in close games when they didn't have a lot of talent, you could say, well, maybe that makes that skewed a little bit. I don't remember all the scores in 17 and 18. They were in some games, they lost some close ones, and they just didn't have the talent. So that, but he has blown 3 leads this year, fourth quarter leads to division opponents. He's blown 2 Super Bowls. He blew an NFC championship game. All those came with big leads or big enough leads in the fourth quarter. So,
but once again, if I may inject a little reason into this, they played on the road against the Rams and Matthew Stafford with Jimmy Garoppolo,
who had no
and
cup,
lost.
No cup.
Who's better, Matthew Stafford or Jimmy Garoppolo? They played on the road in Philly against the Eagles, Jalen Hurts against Josh Johnson. Who do you think's better? Okay. So, there are circumstances here. I'm
just talking about the leads.
I'll give you an example. 1987, for some of you older people in the back. 1987. Minnesota. 49ers, I think, won 14-2. They were
13-2. I think they played 15 games that year, the strike or whatever it was.
Yep.
Okay. Yep. 13-2. 13-2. Okay. They were great. They got into a playoff game against the Vikings. The Vikings starting quarterback was Tommy Kramer. He wasn't healthy. They went to Wade Wilson. Jerry Burns was the head coach. Anthony Carter just had an incredible day. Yeah, 292 yards or whatever it was, some amazing day. And that's it. They won. That was the better team losing. The Niners were better than the Vikings, and they lost.
And
the Niners weren't better. The Niners weren't really better than the Eagles, I don't think. They might have been. I thought they were going to win that game, but I wouldn't say the Niners were better than the Eagles. If I had to say one or the other, I'd probably say Eagles were slightly better. I would have said the Rams were a little bit better than the Niners with Stafford, especially being at home. I would have said the Mahomes is better both times in the Super Bowl. They don't have a game under Shanahan that it was like, oh my God, they lost to that team. No, they don't have that one. They lost to some teams. They don't have a Minnesota, Jerry Burns, Wade Wilson. What? Your season ended that way? The Niners had that under Joe, but they didn't have that. And they had that under Steve.
I think they have it this year, though, Larry. I think they have it this year. They lost to the Rams without Kupp and Puka Nacua, and then they lost
a regular season game, Danny.
Yeah,
the Niners lost to the Steelers in 84.
Right.
The Niners lost to the Bengals with Larry Kinnebrew. We're talking about regular season.
Fourth quarter losses this year. The Niners should be at least 7-4 right now.
I'm just saying, like, they don't have that postseason Shanahan loss that you're like, dude, they should have won and they lost.
That's true.
Unless you want to say last year. Unless you want to say they should have beat them last year. I'll say this. It makes it maddening, too, because they have had leads. And I'll agree with you. I'm not blind to it. I think Shanahan could be criticized. He gets too pass happy. I outlined it in a video a month ago. Take the 5 biggest losses of his career. What you're going to find is he passed the ball 60% of the time and he ran 40% of the time.
Do you think that comes because
a little too pass happy?
You think it's because he was a wide receiver in college?
I think you know what I think it is? I think he's impatient.
Yeah.
I think he's really, really impatient.
Agree.
I don't think he wants to wait around to get back into the game. He wants to get back in the game now, like right now. Like, let's score like right now.
But they're ahead. They don't have to get back in the game. They're ahead. What do you mean get back in the game?
Yeah, but have you seen when they do fall behind? I mean, that, whenever he wants to get it all back right now. We want to score in 3 plays.
What do you think's happened to this team, though, with the play calling this year? Like, a lot of teams they'll pass the ball a lot, but they use the passing game as their running game because they don't have a great running game. The Niners right now, their running game is not that great. Although Mason did pretty well this year when he was in the lineup, and he was putting up 100+ yards a game, but we don't see any of these little swing passes to the backs to pick up 4 or 5 yards that are just easy check down passes or passes over the middle to the check down to McCaffrey. Why do you think they've gone more downfield and over to the sidelines and stopped using the backs this year? I don't see hardly any use of the backs at all. And I know McCaffrey was out, but Mason was catching the balls that were thrown to him early on in the season.
It's baffling. It really is. I mean, there's been huge changes to this offense. They used to operate under center, a lot of play action, and now it's out of the gun and hardly any play action. He's much more of a downfield passer now. They don't throw it to their backs as much. They don't play action pass as much. I've inquired as to why. I only get, the statements of fact, like, yes, we used to do that, but no real explanation for the evolution.
Right. They ran a couple of times out of I formation today, which was kind of cool to see. Like, that's old school. And
Womack.
They had positive yards too on them.
Yeah, this comment here makes a lot. Womack starting and thriving with the Colts couldn't get on the field here. Pound roster hashtag roster politics. Bill M.
Well, this pisses me off. Now you're getting me into an area that I really am pissed off about.
There you go.
I understand in free agency, you go and you ask the owner for some money, right? Hey, we want to sign this guy. Can we get some money? But the 49ers, it's like, every asset that you use are your assets, and there's some value to it. There's value to your picks. There's value to your money. There's some, your assets. I mean, I don't think it's like for the 49ers to say, we want Isaiah Oliver. Okay. And then to say, oh, well, we're going to keep Isaiah Oliver and we're going to cut Deshaun Jameson. And then the season goes by and Oliver stinks and Jameson goes on and plays well. And now you've lost a cheap player in Deshaun Jameson, and you had Oliver, and then you had to banish Oliver finally so you could, but they made a run at playing Oliver. Why? Because they probably went to Jed and asked for bonus money to pay Oliver. So then they know they look bad to Jed if they ask for money to sign Oliver and he gets beat out by some guy they drafted or signed after the draft. So I don't like their July decisions. Their July decisions are trying to protect their faulty, mistake-laden April and May decisions. So, I mean, they did it again this year. They decided to pick up Isaac Yiadom. And so they picked up Yiadom, but then they wound up with this veteran, these too many bodies at corner. And so they kept Rock Ya-Sin and they kept Yiadom and they cut Womack, or they put Womack through waivers, and good corners who can run like Womack are never fucking getting through waivers. And of course he didn't get through waivers. Chris Ballard claimed him and he's gone to Indianapolis and he's played really well. Well, guess what? He's played well. He's played better than Yiadom. And now you're paying Yiadom, who you can't even afford to pay Yiadom. And you're paying Yiadom when you could have had, Womack for cheaper, and you're hugged up against the cap. So it's like,
and the Yiadom, look at the pass today that Watson dropped. Yiadom was beat by 5 yards.
And then you've got linebackers that, there's cheap linebackers that you could have signed left and right before or after the draft. Did they go after those guys? No. They signed instead Devondre Campbell, and, Campbell is, struggling. So, yeah, I mean, it really bothers me. It's like, I get it. They extended for from some veteran free agents. But instead of looking at them going, hey, you know what? These rookies are better than these veterans. They're like, well, we'll just force feed our veterans in there. And then when they're playing like shit, we'll just look everybody in the eye at the presser and tell them they're playing great. And it's like, dude, how many times Do I have to listen to Nick Sorensen tell me that Devondre Campbell's playing great, only to then turn on the game and see that other teams are attacking him like a wounded, deer in a field of lions? I mean, it's like, it's absolutely ridiculous. But then, I'm going to ask the same question. Hey, Nick, D. Winters was your highest graded player by PFF. He only played 10 snaps. Why is that? Or is it possible we're going to see more of Winters and maybe less of Campbell in the weeks ahead? And he's like, we really like Devondre. He's a veteran. He's playing some of the best football he's played. It's like, stop gaslighting me.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm like, my God, I can't. It's bad enough that we get gaslit and all this political talk, but then we, have to be gaslit and all the sports talk as well. Devondre Campbell sucks. He stinks. He can't cover anybody. The numbers reflect it. He only piles up tackle totals because everything's at his feet because they're attacking him constantly. So he's always around the ball. So he gets like 8 tackles, but they're all 7 yards down the field. Notice that Devondre Campbell has like about 18 tackles in the last 3 games and no TFLs. He doesn't have one. He's got 18 tackles, but no tackles on the other side of the line of scrimmage because he's making every tackle 3 and 4 and 5 yards downfield. And then we're being gaslit by Sorensen telling us that he's great when he's anything but great.
Yeah, they're gonna. Let's get to a few more of these. Why can't Kyle Shanahan use the same magic with Garendo's speed like he did with Raheem Mostert?
Good question.
Yeah, that's a great
question. Why would you take a game breaker off the field? Explain to me why you don't want a game breaker with 4.3 speed to be on the field. I realize he fumbled on special teams and he can't be trusted. But guess what? Run him on go routes and watch the room that it creates. I would have him out there just running patterns to save Debo and JJ a few routes and run him, run off the coverage. I mean, other teams do it. They put fast guys out there. You think Tutu Atwell's a nuanced route runner? Hell no. He's running go patterns. But guess what? You got to defend it because he's going to run right by you. And the Niners are like doing their opponent a favor. Oh, why would we want to put him out there? We might put the defense in an uncomfortable position. I mean, seriously, explain to me why 6'1", 230-pound, 4.33 Isaac Garendo cannot be utilized in any role on the offense when you don't have speed and he seems to be the ultimate guy to create space in your offense. And no reference to him at all. It's like he can't help you when he can really help you, even if he never touched the ball. I don't get it. I really don't get it.
What's mind-boggling is like, why do you draft these kids? Like these are your investments. Like those are draft picks. That's like drafting stock. These are kids that you believed in. You made the phone call and said, we're drafting you, but we're not going to play you over players that you're obviously better than. I mean, I think Winters is better than Campbell. I think Jalen Graham could be better than Campbell.
I agree. I think Jalen Graham is better than Campbell.
Yes.
And
yes.
Jalen Graham can't even get on the field. Yeah. And you know what's going to be absolutely mind-boggling, sickening, is if the Niners wind up losing next week at Buffalo and really play the last month of the year with nothing on the line. I would imagine they will start playing the Jalen Grahams of the world. And what exactly are they going to say if Jalen Graham winds up with like a 12 or 14 tackle game in week 14, 15, 16, 17? What are they going to say if Jalen Graham starts becoming like a tackling machine? They're going to say, well, we knew it, but we just, they knew Brock Purdy was the best quarterback, but they didn't play him until week 13. They knew Jalen Graham's the best linebacker, but he just didn't get any run. It's like, you can't claim that you know these things. You really can't, because nobody's going to buy it.
Yep. We got a couple more here. Matthew, Larry, you're right. Kyle is ranked 119 out of 124 coaches all time in one-score games for no fault of his own. Just don't stand near him in a thunderstorm. Okay.
He ranks 119 out of 124 in what? In one score games?
Yeah. No fault of his own.
Send me that stat. Love to see that stat. Show me that one.
I'll pull it up for you here. Oops. Come on. What's going on here? No fault of his own. Sorry for the typo. Bill M. Pearsall ran really good screens and in routes in college. Use him in that nature. There we go. And then Bill.
It would bother Debo to no end if Kyle did end arounds to Garendo. But once again,
roster politics.
This is kind of like Kerr last year with Clay.
Yep.
You know, stop giving me your excuses for why you can't play your best players. Stop telling me about message sending and, you know, the feelings of everybody. Fuck the feelings of everybody. I don't give a shit about the feelings of anybody. Put the best players on the field, and if you can't, we'll find somebody who can.
Love it.
We got Bill M. He said, I think Kyle wanted Mac Jones.
Who knows?
You know, which is really perplexing because if you really badly wanted Mac Jones, they probably should have traded. They probably should have stayed where they were at or traded up like 5 spots and, like, you know, hung out. Instead, they traded into the top 3. And then people were like, hell no, you're not going for Mac Jones in the top 3. He's too limited. And looking at the way the NFL is right now, Mac Jones, you can't go for quarterbacks who have no mobility. It's 2024. You got to have mobility. Mobility has to be a factor. I thought that was a key factor today. Look at the difference between when Brandon Allen was harassed and harangued and pressured and his ability when he escaped the pocket. It just looked like he wasn't going anywhere. He was like in quicksand. He wasn't moving anywhere fast. He wasn't going anywhere fast. He wasn't going to be able to get away from anybody. Brock Purdy's so much faster. Brock Purdy has so much more explosive movement ability. You know, so I mean, it's pretty obvious that if you're going to, you know, whatever quarterback you're going for in the future, he better have some ability to move, or it's going to, you know, it's not going to work.
There we go.
Shanahan's win percentage is just .378 in games decided by 7 points or fewer, which ranks 119 out of 124 head coaches who have been in at least 40 games. Missing, what does it say? Missing score?
Score. That was when I typed in it, just Google. But that is an actual article that was in Sports Illustrated. I believe that was written by Grant.
Yeah.
Not a surprise.
You might want to check that stat. Seems like a cherry picked stat to me. You may want to check that stat.
Oh, that's great. You should have crossed out the Sports Illustrated section of it. That's awesome.
Oh, if it's on the internet, it must be true.
Yeah.
It is a sport. I actually the actual article is let's see. It is written by Grant, and it was written a month ago.
Yeah, and Grant, you know, has been anti-Kyle for a while, so you might want to check that stat. You may want to do some research on that one to see if it's accurate or not. I'm not saying it isn't, but it may not be.
Wait. This is saying according. Here, I'll pull it up right here because Grant wrote the article, but he did not come up with the stat. Here is the according to AP's Josh DeBow, Shanahan's win percentage is just .378 in games decided by 7 points or fewer, which ranks 119 out of 124. Been in at least 40 games, decided 7 or fewer points. The only head coaches with worse winning percentages than Shanahan in such games are Dom Capers, Zach Taylor, Doug Marrone, Monty Clark. Oh, the old Monty Clark of the Lions. Didn't Monty Clark win with the Niners in the 70s? In the 70s, right? Yeah,
76.
And Dan Henning, we're not great company. So yeah, that's
where
I
don't know. Dom Capers is a pretty damn good defensive coordinator there. The rest of those guys are donkeys for the most part, but.
But
Larry, if you had to tinker with Kyle's offense a little bit, is there anything that you would personally like to see him do more of or less of to get the offense, being a little bit more consistent? Before you answer that, I'll just say that I'd like to see Purdy, have a moving pocket a little bit more, because he's a shorter quarterback, and when he stands in the pocket, you're right. A lot of the fans don't watch the all 22 and they see a pick and they just think, what a horrible throw. But when you're throwing over the middle and the linebackers jump, kind of putting his hands up, you got to get it over him. And that sometimes will get the ball and throw higher. And I think if he rolled the pocket, he is mobile a little bit more and was out there in the open with clearer vision. I think that might be something that he could do to help the offense a little bit. But is there anything else that stands out to you that could be an improvement?
I mean, personally, I'd love to see them throw a few screen passes, and it seems like the Niners don't do a great job when they get these teams that over pursue at using their pursuit against them. They'll do it with like a running play on an end around, if they, they'll go east west, but they don't do a lot of the screen passes. I mean, when you really think about, you talk to defensive coaches for 10 minutes about defending screen passes, they'll tell you it all comes down to your desire and your hustle and your ability to close in an open space. And there is no exact way that you're supposed to defend a screen. It's like you got to bust ass. That's how you defend a screen. And so I wish they would throw a few more screen passes. The other thing is one of the things that I think is really, really is really clear is that Guerrero on certain formations, when you can spread another team out and get everybody up on the line of scrimmage, and you don't have that second level and third level defenders all stacked in the box, and you can kind of get more people up on the line, man, I mean, if you can spring him past the line of scrimmage, he's a guy that can absolutely take it to the house. I mean, that's why he has to be utilized. Because if you can spring him past the line of scrimmage in a number of different formations, it's like, okay, one safety who might take a bad angle, and then other than that, it's a house call. It's going the distance. So to me, the fact that they don't use Guerrero on more of those quick trap run plays, I mean, when you have a guy who's this big and this fast, he is a true game breaker. Okay. Get him the ball. I mean, the one thing I can guarantee you is that if you've got a game breaking player, he will not score a touchdown if you never try to get him the ball. So there's no way you can break the game open from the bench. So to me, that is my number one thing. And it's not a specific play or anything. It's just you have a game breaker with game breaking speed, and you don't put him on the field nearly enough. You don't put as much pressure on defenses as you need to and as you could. So that's one. I'd like to see a few more screen passes to see if other teams can tackle in the open field, especially some of these teams that have injuries at safety or linebacker. Make them tackle your speedy running backs in the flat or in the middle of the field. Let's see if they can do it. And then you have to somehow use JP Mason. I mean, my God. I mean, today he runs for 16 yards. I mean, I don't know if you guys were aware of that sequence where he ran for the sequence where Mason ran for 16 yards. The next four plays, pass, 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 and then pass. You just ran your best run of the day for 16 yards, and you followed that up with four straight passes. Yep. Make that make sense.
That's why I brought up Bill Walsh in the 81 NFC Championship game. I don't know what the defense was in that next play afterwards, but the fact, and if that play worked so good, why not rush to the line of scrimmage since they're in the wrong defense to allow that play to happen and do it again?
Like I said earlier, Bobby Turner is a legendary old school coach, and I know he's probably not available to the media ever, but boy, I'd love to hear his opinion about this topic.
Yeah, I don't understand. That's the part that just baffles me when you see Guerrero. I mean, not Guerrero, but Mason. He looked fresh. He's obviously feeling a lot better from that shoulder AC joint. He's out there. I think the problem, I was going to mention this earlier, I'm starting to wonder if the problem with the offense recently has been, I wonder if Purdy's been hurting longer than we think, and it just got to the point where he couldn't throw it all. Because you remember a couple weeks ago, I think it was the Tampa game, came off the bye, and his passes, they're floating. We talked about it in the post game, Larry, saying like he just didn't look the same. The balls were coming out high. They had a lot of air on them, and they used to have more zip. I mean, beginning of the year, he was throwing downfield, 20, 30, 40 yards downfield with some zip. And then all of a sudden he can't throw 10, 12, 15-yard passes that are on target. They're going high and they got, a little air behind them. I'm wondering if this is what's been going on, that they have been keeping this under wraps, and maybe it's some kind of tendonitis or something that's getting worse.
Whatever it was bothering him Thursday, and it was acute. I mean, it was definitely, he made a throw, he felt something, he grabbed for the shoulder. It's obviously not right. As far as when he heard it, how he heard it, has it been gradual? Is it multiple injuries, multiple weeks? Is he playing with pain? I don't know. A.S. Muncher says Larry's changed his opinion on Guerrero 5 times. I've never changed my opinion on Guerrero. I've just told you he's not a running back. He's not a running back. He's super raw, and you saw it today. He ran up on special teams, bumped into a guy, and fumbled. So he really can't be trusted with the ball. He's not a running back, as far as he can't be trusted with the ball and all kinds of run outside zone, run to the edge, put your foot in the ground, find a hole, cut it up. No, he doesn't. He can't do that. He doesn't have running back movements or instincts. The point is he's just an athlete. He was a high school wide receiver, and he's played running back in college, but he never played. He always came off the bench. He only started once in his entire career. So I haven't changed my opinion at all. I just told you guys he's not a running back, and then I'm telling you that he's a weapon, and you got to utilize him. He's just not a running back. He's not an everyday starter at running back. To me, he's an athlete, and I would use him as I would cut Yogurtshack next year and make Guerrero the fullback. Why? Because he's fullback size, and he doesn't have the ability to pick and slide like a running back, but he's an athlete. He's a clear, game-breaking, game-changing athlete. The Niners used to throw the ball in the flat to the fullback a lot.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how much I'm dying to see the 49ers, throw the ball in the flat to Guerrero as a fullback. Yeah. And I'd love to see what it looks like, because we all know that if the fullback back in the day used to catch the ball in the flat, if he could make one guy miss, then he could take it to the house. But that's all this guy's got to do is make one guy miss.
And this is kind of what we're talking about here. You mentioned Mason running for 16 yards and then 4 straight passes. Bill says, Larry, doesn't that smell like bad play calling? After 16-yard run and then 4 straight passes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. I mean, it's bad. What it is bad play sequencing. It's not bad play calling necessarily. It's just not calling the plays in the sequence that we think they should be called. And Kyle typically is pretty good at that.
Hayden says Kyle can do no wrong.
Oh, I love the call to throw more running back screens, because ironically the 49ers have a hard time defending it. Yeah. So
you look at this and Larry, you see it. You're frustrated with the lack of, like you said, halfback screens or throwing the ball in the flat to Guerrero. But if you go ask Kyle that, he's going to give you a, a stubborn answer that's like, well, he's not going to give you a why don't you. He's not going to. He's going to defend it, and yet
he's sarcastic. Oh, you mean 2 running backs?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't appreciate that just because it's like, oh, like I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah.
Well, you didn't do it.
Exactly.
So does it matter if you thought about it? It's like my wife. It was her birthday this week. If I showed up to dinner without a present and she said, "Hey, where's my present?" And you say, "Hey, well, you didn't think I thought about that? You didn't think I thought that it was your birthday and that a present would be appropriate?" Yeah, I thought about that.
Yeah,
Did you get me one? Did you get me a present? No, I didn't get you one, but I thought about it. Sorry. You don't get brownie points for thinking about shit. You actually got to do it.
Classic.
Yeah, I mean, Shanahan. I understand. Shanahan is very frustrating coach. One, because he's very talented. Two, because it's like he's got all the answers, but then he doesn't. And
one of your members says, ironically, Larry, did you see how LaFleur does it? Yeah,
I saw LaFleur went for it on 4th down, or went for it for a touchdown late in that game. I thought that was interesting.
Let me ask you this, guys. You saw what happened last year in the playoff.
Danny, I gotta jump in.
Yeah, we'll finish it. We'll finish this right here. We'll get out of here. We've gone too long. We saw Green Bay. Get up on the Niners. Niners come back. Great second half comeback. Brock pulls it out. Same thing happened to Detroit. Today, Green Bay crushes the Niners and probably enjoyed it. Do you think this happens with Detroit when they come to town toward the end of the season? I think it's the second. The only hope the Niners have is that the Lions come in at 14-1 and they don't play all, and the game's meaningless and they don't play all their guys, because I think if the chance comes for Dan Campbell to bury the Niners, he will try to make a statement and run it up. What do you think?
I mean, the Lions have a lot of talent. The Lions have a lot of talent. And yeah, I do think they are going to try to run it up. I think to some degree, LaFleur tried to run it up today. So, it's just the way it is. I get no problem with that either, by the way. Run it up all you want, do what you got to do. Run it up. This ain't fucking tiddlywinks. This ain't goddamn high school. This is pro football. You play as hard as you fucking can. I'll play as hard as I fucking can, and we'll let it all shake out at the end. This ain't fucking Camp Alindo Northgate. This ain't fucking Reardon SH. You know what I mean? You play as hard as you can. Bring it any way you want to bring it, and we'll take it. I've never gone for the, you know what? I didn't like the fact that they stole a base in the 8th. Then throw them out. Otherwise, shut up.
Look at AS Muncher. Larry, you can go when we tell you to go, bro.
All right, Muncher.
All right, we're gonna end it right here.
How'd you get that nickname, Muncher?
Bill. Thanks for the $10.
Look at Los is like, no.
Bill, this great show. Give Larry a couple of bucks. We're gonna get out of here, guys. I gotta.
Thank you, Bill. I'm doing all right, Bill.
Larry got plenty of bucks tonight.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Are you going live tomorrow morning?
What's that?
You going live tomorrow morning with Damon?
Yeah, I'll be live at 9 tomorrow, and then usually Grant and I stream on Mondays if he's back in time from Chicago. He's flying back from Chicago. If not, we'll do it later in the week. Then I'll do Niners Nightly tomorrow night at 6 o'clock on KMBR, and looking forward to it. Should be really good. Should be a lot of fun, and a lot of people going to be bitching and complaining. A lot of complaining. And at this point, you know what? I'm here for it. Let me just double check one thing before we go. I just want to double check the schedule here. Make sure before I tell people I'm on tomorrow. Got to make sure that I am on tomorrow. Tomorrow is the 25th. So actually tomorrow, because of Monday Night Football, I will be on the KMBR YouTube strictly tomorrow. So
Okay.
6 to 7 tomorrow night on the KMBR YouTube only. Tuesday night, I'll be on the radio. Wednesday night, I'll be on the radio from 6 to 7. Thursday night, Thursdays, I'll be off. Thanksgiving. Friday, I'll be off for Thanksgiving as well. And you can catch me on Saturday with 49er Forecast at 10. So Niners Nightly this week, just Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and only Tuesday and Wednesday will be on the radio. Monday will be on the YouTube.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And everybody listening here on both shows here, if you're...
And let me just say one more thing, Danny, before you before you cancel it, before you pull the plug.
Yeah.
There aren't too many people in this world I respect more than you two guys. So I just wanted to say, everybody who's over here watching because of me, Danny is an OG on my channel, and give him a like, give him a subscribe. He puts together great content on the Niners, on the Warriors, on the Giants. Please help him out. He just got to 3,000 subs, right, Danny? 3,000?
We're almost to 3,200 now.
3,200 subs,
Just under there, yeah.
And he's building this thing, and Los, great respect for you. You're a San Francisco OG like myself,
Sunset District.
If I there you go, fist in the air for the Sunset.
Sure.
Great respect for both you guys, and it's been a long day, but I definitely wanted to come over here and spend as much time as I could hanging out with you guys. So I would love to do more baseball dialogue. There's many nights where I look up on YouTube or on Twitter, and I'll see, hey, Krug, you're streaming. You got X number of people in there, and they'll say, Dan Coach Emilio's streaming, talking Giants. And a lot of times I'm tempted to jump in the room, but I've been burning the candle at all ends, trying to build up the channel and capitalize and do everything Kev wants me to do to make ends meet here. So
awesome.
We're doing as much as we can. I'd like to do more baseball. When the Giants start making moves, I will be streaming on some baseball. I will be doing more basketball as the Niner season winds down. I'm already deep. I'm deep on the draft. I mean, I could talk. I mean, if we did a nothing but a draft show tonight, I'm prepared right now off the top of my head to talk about probably 250 to 300 prospects in pretty good detail. So I am going to be all over the NFL draft in January, February, March, and April. Keep a lock on the Krug show during the springtime. We're going to spit out a ton of draft stuff. You're going to get tired of it.
Larry, try to make it down to spring training if you can this next year.
I will. It was great.
Well,
by the way, somebody here says Krug is so frustrating. He rarely puts accountability or blame on Shanahan, but he says the team has no talent. He always complains that Shanahan doesn't use running backs correctly, but makes excuses for him. No, I'm not making excuses for him. I'm legitimately upset, but I'm just not firing him. You guys are firing him. I'm just not firing him. So I hear you. You're right. I'm pissed off at the Niners situation. I'm frustrated by the situation, but I'm not ready to fire Shanahan like you.
Yeah.
That's fair.
You tripping says, Dan, what's the channel name? Right up there at the top, guys. NorCal Sports Network, right above my head and Los's head. If you see the banner, go over to YouTube, NorCal Sports Network. You can see our logo right in the right corner where Los is at. That's our logo. Go subscribe. We really would appreciate it. We appreciate Larry coming on tonight, taking time. I know he's been going at it all day. How'd you do? Did you make any money in your better today? On your better and your picks?
Oh, yeah. I made good money today. I took the Eagles tonight, doubled down. I doubled my wager tonight on the Eagles. It was Eagles -3, and that was just too easy. I won in the afternoon. I took Denver and Seattle on the money line. I got my bets in too late in the morning, luckily. Otherwise, I would have lost my money line parlay because I had the Texans in it, and they lost. to the Titans. So I would have lost my money line parlay if Kev had responded to my text to get it down, but he didn't. So I actually was a big winner today. And yesterday did really great in college. Had Notre Dame against Army. A lot of good picks yesterday. Had Ohio State against Indiana. Sorry, Damon. But yeah, it was a terrible weekend for the Niners. It was a very profitable gambling weekend.
Good. All right, everybody. Thanks for being here. We will see you here on NorCal Sports tomorrow. Check out our videos that go out every day. We've got some more videos coming out, and we'll be live tomorrow night at 8:00 Pacific time. Okay.
I got Cole Dunstan here asking me if I have my own channel, Dan.
Oh,
that's a problem.
Cole's been, yeah.
Cole, welcome back. Welcome back.
Just
what rock have you been under?
Cole, yes, I've got this little channel. It's called the Kruger Show. Come on over. We're making s'mores and buttering each other's muffins over there. You'll love it.
Just slightly ahead of NorCal Sports, but not by much, Cole.
Not if you keep having these streams.
Must be a weird guy.
Well, guys,
have you reached 3K yet? Somebody asked. Yes, I've reached 3K. Yes, I have.
Yeah, just a little over 51,000. All right, guys. Thanks for being here. We will see you tomorrow. Everybody have a good one. Take care.
Peace.